Welcome to the ninth grade experience. I'm your host, Chris Dutchko. As a teacher of freshmen and one of our freshman mentor committee faculty advisors, I spend a lot of my school day thinking about and helping students with the successful transition from middle school to the halls of Emmaus High School. The goal of this podcast is to give you the story of the ninth grade here at Emmaus High School through the people who live it daily, the students and staff. We will attempt to touch on the real issues and stories that ninth grade students face, ranging from academics to athletics, technical school, and just trying to find your way as one person in a community of approximately 2,700 students. We will also look to speak with some of the influential staff members who play a key part in a student's ninth grade year. It is the hope that future ninth grade students and their families can use the tips and insights provided here to begin making connections to their potential new school and learn more about the day-to-day lives of the students that they will one day become and realize from day one that ninth grade counts. You can learn more about this episode and all of the episodes of the ninth grade experience by following us on Twitter at EHSFMC or at Chris Stutchko, or following the hashtag EHS9counts, or our website, sites.google.com/eastpennsd.org/ninth grade experience. Before we jump into today's topic, let's thank our sponsor for this show, the East Penn Education Foundation. This podcast has been made possible through a $1,000 grant awarded to teachers like me each year who are attempting to do unique projects in the area of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. The foundation supports programs that put learning in motion by giving students the tools they need to think actively in a complex and changing world. You can follow them on Facebook at EPSD Education Foundation, on Twitter at EPSD EdFound, or on Instagram at EPSD Ed Foundation. Now on to the show. Welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast. We have several different people checking in. We have one of our two certified school nurses. We have Mr. Annoni, who's one of the assistant principals, and we're going to have some students kind of check in as well too. So this episode is going to be all over the board. We'll see where we can get to, but I think we have some good topics that we're going to talk about. So thanks everybody for joining us today, and we might have some more people join us as we kind of go here. So thanks a lot. So Miss Hendershot actually reached out to me and asked to come on because it's interesting, you know, with being a school nurse right now, there's not a whole lot that, well, we don't even really know what's going on with our school nurse right now. Like, obviously that we don't have students that are trying to see the school nurse. So she kind of wanted to chime in about what the nurses have been up to and some of the information that they wanted to provide. So Miss Hendershot, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Stucco, for having me. Yes, it's a new avenue for school nurses to be working online, just like the students are. The majority of my work during the day is Google meetings like this, Google Hangout meets, Zoom meetings with faculty, meetings with the other school nurses in the district so that we can prepare and work on a plan while we're home. For the, events that are going on with the coronavirus. We do a lot of research. We have to stay on top of all the research that's coming in from the Centers for Disease Control and reaching out to our students in school and getting topics out to them that they need to be made aware of.
And that's great that you ended right with that point, because I think that's one of the things you wanted to talk today about, is that on a weekly basis you are all checking in with either Dr. Kiris, our principal, or communicating through the district website some things to look forward to or look at doing. And one of the things that you wanted to talk about today, we kind of mentioned it on our last episode, and we have a couple students here that might also be able to chime in with this after you give a little bit of information, and Mr. Annoni might jump in as well too, is about establishing a good routine at home. I know now this is the 5th week that we've been home. This is the 2nd week where we've done learning that quote counts. So what kind of information have you been sending out to people about setting up that routine, and what have you been seeing at the high school level? Like, how have you been how have students been doing with that? Have you been able to reach out to people? Have people been asking you about how to do that kind of stuff?
As our weekly topic for the district nurses that we send to Dr. Kieras was about establishing a routine. I am a mom of a junior in high school, and he is having difficulty with online learning. And it's hard because you don't have a bell going off, going to class, having, let's say, meetings in person. So it really has changed things. It's really important to have a routine so that way you're not getting behind in your schoolwork, and it gives almost like a purpose to your day. You can it's important to get up in the each about the same time every day. Make sure you have a decent breakfast. I know a lot of high school students don't eat breakfast at all. Well, now we're home, so now we can have breakfast, so there's no excuses.
Yeah, my middle school son yesterday declared that he's no longer eating breakfast. So I have no idea why that was, but a good tip to like get up and actually decide to, eat breakfast, start your day, kind of get into that routine. Before you jump back in, we have David and Josh here, a couple of students from some of my classes. Hey guys, you can unmute yourselves for a second here. But are you guys finding yourselves getting into a beginning of the day routine or any sort of routine that you wanted to talk about?
I don't know. I just wake up and like make my bed, do all my homework for the day, and then I go to my online classes during the day.
So if you don't mind me asking, David, what time is getting up for the day?
Around 8 o'clock, 8:30.
So that's pretty early, 8 o'clock, 8:30. And we do know, and just a little insider information, we had a Google Hangout last week with David's class where David was actually cleaning his room and making his bed. So I do know that he is telling the truth, that he actually does clean and do that other stuff. So now that I've publicly embarrassed him in front of the millions of people that are going to listen to this, maybe he won't do that again on a Google Meet. So you're getting all that done. And what time each day, David, do you think you're kind of done with your work for the day?
Around latest is 2.
Okay, so about you're doing, and I'm sure you're eating lunch and doing some other stuff in there as well too. So you have a nice little routine there. How about you, Josh? What do you what is your routine or your daily routine kind of look like?
I try to get all my work done before Friday, so then I have Friday to do nothing.
That's a good plan. And are you accomplishing that this week since we started a day later?
Yeah, I started some things Monday that my teachers posted on Monday.
Oh, okay.
It was a rainy day. I had nothing to do. I'm like, might as well just get a head start.
That's a good plan. Getting a head start on stuff, that's part of the routine as well too. So Miss Hendershot, I know you were you said first off there was like getting up in the morning, getting at a decent time, eating breakfast. What else? What are some other of the tips or strategies that you may have included in your communications there with families and students about establishing that routine?
I think, spending time, like David said, spending those hours doing schoolwork, but it's also important to be able to take a break and just get some downtime in between the schoolwork. But I think the biggest thing is that what's really important is because we're inside so much is to get outside for a walk or go do something outside, just like Mr. Annoni was walking, outside. It is so important just to get out, get some fresh air. Physical exercise has so many benefits. It clears our minds. It's good for our hearts. We might be eating a little bit more now that we're sitting at home. There's more chances to snack. So some of us may need that exercise to lose a few pounds.
Yeah, so Mr. Annoni has unmuted himself. He's actually now back inside from his walk. I know you can't see that, but we're doing a Google Meet recording. So he actually started the podcast today outside, and now that he's back in, he is ready to chime in. So I know that walk I'm sure with all the emails and all the other stuff that you're doing on a daily basis, Mr. Annoni, I'm sure that walk kind of clears your mind a little bit there.
Yeah, it's definitely important because, to just get away from the computer for a second and get a brain break, with all the Zoom meetings and all of that stuff going on and things like that, to just disconnect, we find that that's important because, as it was mentioned earlier, we're on Zoom meetings, Google Hangouts, Google Meets, and it's like I never thought that I'd want to be so disconnected our electronic devices, so it is nice, to just get out for a minute and walk. And then, as it was mentioned as well, with all the food now that's just so readily available, it's like, I fear the day that I have to put a suit back on, because I think that it's just going to be a little too snug. But yeah, it is important, like, that routine, you get up, and after making the bed and things like that, to just get out, walk, get your head cleared, think about what it is that you have to get done. And students, this goes with schoolwork, what is the work that you have to get done, get that plan in place, and then, get right to it. But yeah, it's what I've been trying to do.
In your spot right now, I know you're beginning the process of like reaching out to individual students and kind of checking in with that kind of stuff. Have you been able to find like the students that you've been checking in with, like have they gotten a routine, like, or are you reaching out to people that still haven't yet kind of gotten the hang of how to kind of accomplish this online learning thing?
Well, I mean, for me, with the students that I've spoken to, it's been a mixed bag. Surprisingly, there are many students who are in a routine. There are many that are reaching out saying, hey, I want to get started. There have been students who, 2 weeks ago, prior to the whole April 6th is the day that we're pushing forward with turn work in, that we're inquiring about what can we get done. At the same time, I know that, our AAs, which, I mean, they're making a lot of calls without having our administrative assistants to really, get behind us right now. We couldn't do half of the stuff that we're doing without them. But they're finding that, they're seeing students aren't getting stuff done. There are a lot of students that aren't like getting work turned in. We have to remind them that attendance is tied into the work that they're completing. I had a conversation with a parent today, which is funny. When I spoke to him, he was like, oh, really? You guys started that, huh? When I get home, talk to my son and find out what it is he's doing. There was, Ms. Rodriguez shared with me that when her AA spoke with one of the parents, he, spoke immediately to his son who was on the phone playing video games and was like, put that game down now and get to work. There was another student who thought that school is over, completely over. So we're finding a bag, as far as things go. But again, just the routine itself with students and wanting to be involved with and getting into routine, it's difficult. I go to Walmart and to Giant to really talk with the students and just talk to them about, hey, don't slack, because it's real easy to do right now.
Yeah, and it's definitely something too, and we're recording at about 2:20. We're about 2:20 on Thursday, and at this point they have released the plan for the rest of the school year. We're going to talk about that next week with Mr. McInerney and Mrs. Demchek, our ninth grade counselor. So we're not going to go too much into that today, but I think the plan that's going forward will be a wake-up call to some of our families to kind of be like, hey, it's time to, get this thing back together, especially since we're entering the fourth marking period there. So Ms. Hendershot, so we've talked about the importance of, getting up in the morning, getting the breakfast, making sure you're taking a brain break, like Mr. Annoni said, just kind of getting yourself outside. What other kind of things were included or tips that you might have for, our high school students?
One of the things that the nurses that we discussed was now is a time that the kids have times to pick up a hobby, something that maybe they enjoy doing on their own time that they don't. Now they have some time to arts and crafts, drawing, painting, riding the bicycle, playing, throwing a football around, that kind of thing. Just instead of playing video games all the time, pick up the other hobbies that maybe they haven't had time with. The other thing too is you're spending a lot of time with family. And I know for a lot of families, this is the time to reconnect. We're eating at home more now, sitting around the kitchen table together. So it's important that, like you said, they establish those routines. And for a lot of students, hopefully we'll see the positive. I think the one thing I've heard the most from students is, which I'm really surprised, is I want to go back to school, how much they really do miss school.
Yeah, and I think we've heard that a lot too. I don't know, Josh, are you still with us there? I know your microphone's muted and your camera's off, but maybe hopefully you'll join us back because I was going to ask you
I'm
about
sure,
that.
yeah.
Oh, you're here. Okay,
Yeah.
so you hopefully you were listening in there. Miss Hendershot was talking about finding new stuff that you might enjoy. I think we talked about that maybe on a prior episode with you because you have been on a couple of them now that you've been here. But have you kind of picked up on anything new or refound something that you really enjoyed? Or, the last thing she talked about there was kind of connecting with family a little bit more. But is there something that maybe in the last like couple weeks that you've kind of rediscovered that you enjoyed doing?
I've been able to do some more merit badge work for my scouts, for my Eagle.
Nice.
Oh, that's
Great.
right. Because last week we talked and that you were starting last week. You were doing like the virtual scout meetings, correct?
Yeah.
So how does that going?
That went good. That went really good.
So what is like, are they adding like some sort of like mask wearing badge or like a mask making badge, or is there something related to that they're going to add into it?
I don't know.
So yeah, so that's something that's interesting, and I'm sure that there will be some like community aspect to eventually what you guys will do, or like participating with stuff in the community. So rediscovering something, Mr. Annoni, have you had a chance? I know with the extreme amount of like preparation you guys have been doing, has there been something you have refound in these couple weeks here that maybe you hadn't had a chance to do as much?
Absolutely not. No, I wish I could say yes. I want to be honest, but no. We've just been really focusing on what we can best do to serve the students and the staff's needs, and we've had to be so flexible with how much things are changing and trying to think and stay ahead of what's next with educationally, how to stay on top of things and how can we make this best for everyone involved, and all the stakeholders. So
it's a good point. It's a good point you bring up because I don't think, well, I would actually say I know that a lot of us out there don't recognize what was actually going on behind the scenes. And I'm not going to ask you for a blow by blow, but even in those 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks that we were off, you guys technically were not off. You were planning and doing all that work for those 2 weeks, like leading up to the rollouts of all the different stuff. And, just because you're not seeing kids for wearing headphones in the hallway anymore, or headphones in their house, doesn't mean that you're not super busy during the course of the day now. So I just think that's something that a lot of people, like even our ninth graders here, probably don't realize how much it seems like, things are just kind of happening and popping up online, but there was a lot of planning and behind the scenes that have kind of allowed that to go smoothly.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is so unprecedented. There are so many firsts that are occurring for everyone involved. I had my very disciplinary online thing that took place, and there were things that afterwards we had to reflect on, like, how did this go and what were the things that we needed to think about moving forward from it, to make sure we're covered. And, as teachers, we have things that are going to be firsts that are going to be encountered. There's so many things that are unprecedented. The nice thing about it is East Penn School District is not in it alone. Emmaus High School is not in it alone. Last year when we had the flood, Emmaus High School was in it alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone is in it now. So we have other resources and other people that we can talk to about this, that we're all going through. The crazy thing is it's so surreal because of the fact that when you think about it, we're in the midst of something that you only read about or hear about, like in sci-fi movies, but this is like a worldwide pandemic. And it's like, it still really hasn't, it's hit me, but like, I can't even wrap my head around it. Like in the way that it's transformed education. Never thought that we'd wake up in the morning and be pushing out lessons via video like this. And you are now, considered an online instructor. You went to school to be in front of students all day and going through your lessons and things. And I now have to become an expert on how to evaluate you as an online instructor, in a sense, so there are so many things that we're trying to stay ahead of the curve of. It's all up in the air.
Yeah, and I think wherever, and I know Ms. Hendershot, you're kind of maybe tying that in too, is that like I think a lot of us have these, there's so much up in the air. There's so much like no one's ever done this before, and kind of that anxiety piece and some of those other pieces. So has there been any things sent out or any of the nurses updates about like how to deal with those kinds of issues, or will there be, maybe that's a future topic? Like what are some of the suggestions that you might have or the nursing staff might have as to like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. I have all these, I don't know how to do this. And then, we can't even predict like what people's home lives are like, where, we have families where their parents are maybe essential workers, or they're at home taking care of brothers or sisters. So what are some tips or some other things, suggestions to maybe, maybe I have that routine, maybe, thankfully I have breakfast, I have lunch, but like I'm taking care of my brother and sister and my classes are due. Like, is there anything that you guys would recommend for those students?
There is, Mr. Stucco. A lot of the, it's hard right now for a lot of families. There's financial strain. There's, like you said, students are being asked to take care of younger brothers and sisters while mom and dad are working from home. It's a complete juggling act. And there can cause a lot of anxiety. And I think too, one of the topics we talked about the previous week that we had put out was isolation, the social isolation piece. Now, in my day, we didn't have this where we could, see friends on FaceTime and Snapchat and those types of things. We still had the dial phone at home, and, you went down the street to see your friend. The students nowadays have, I would say, a jump on what we did if this had happened years ago when I was a high school student. But yeah, there's a lot of feelings. There's anxiety. There's just the stress of being, in your house all the time. I really would recommend to a lot of kids, turn off the TV. You don't need to hear that news report all the time, because it can get overwhelming. You hear so many different reports, and that's why like taking that walk, picking up that hobby is so important. But a lot of our students might feel isolated too, because school is their common ground with their friends. And that's where they had their connections. So, reaching for us to reach out to students is one thing, because sometimes we're that person that they can rely on, that they can trust. We're the safe place school is, and they may not have that now.
And I think, and speaking to that, Josh, if you're back in there, I know in one of the earlier episodes we talked about that, was like, one of the things that all, like we talked about earlier about being involved in the school building and being there. And one thing that we talked about a lot of students missing is just that personal contact with their friends. Have you had any sort of, I know you've been doing it on like FaceTime or through different chat methods, but has that gotten any better for you, like the missing of your friends, or has it just kind of gotten a little bit worse?
A little better, because I've been doing video chats.
Yeah, and then you're also, when you're involved with your scouts, that's another group of friends that may not necessarily be inside the building. So you are keeping up with different social so like different social groups that maybe aren't even involved in the school, I would guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what recommendation as a student, what would you recommend to other students that are potentially listening today, like as a way to kind of keep the connections there?
This app called Google Duo. It's really, I have it on my computer.
So it's sort of like Google Duo is sort of like FaceTime for Androids. I think I have it on my phone, but I've never used it because I think everyone that I know has an iPhone, because when I'm in every text thread, it's like they get to like stuff and laugh at stuff, and I can't do any of that. So sorry, Android, But as we sit here on Google Meet talking about how bad some Google things are and Android is, but I think it's just kind of finding all those different ways and those different avenues of keeping up with people is kind of so critical and so essential to kind of make sure that we don't feel alone. And I think a lot of times students, even high school students, have those feelings of aloneness even when everyone's in the building together. So now if you're not around all those different people at common times, I could see how that could definitely kind of pick up. So before we started recording, Miss Hendershot, I was just getting a refresher on her. And this was, I'm not sure what we can call it, was supposed to be her first almost full year. She started in October, so she wasn't here for the flood last year. So she got, we made it all the way to March and then decided, we're good. So what has been your impression of Emmaus High School so far, like before this, and then kind of like the response of what you have seen like from the East Penn community and like what we're kind of trying to do for students through this process here?
I went from a school of 300 students that was pre-K to third grade to 3,000 students that are 9th to 12th grade. So it has been challenging, maybe even a little overwhelming sometimes, just trying to figure out my way through the building. I still get lost, but it's been a great experience. Everybody has been very welcoming, understanding, very friendly. I live in the community. So I do see students out and about sometimes. I don't think they always recognize me. But, students that come into the health office, maybe just need to talk, come for medication, come for illnesses, that type of thing. I've really been able to, just get to know the students better, even in that short time. Did I envision my first year being here like this? Absolutely not. Never did I thought this year would be this way. And I'm sad because I didn't want my first year to end maybe not seeing the kids. But we'll be back to school eventually. And but like I said, it's been a really good experience. There are a lot of avenues of where the school district is reaching out to the students. I encourage students to, if they need somebody to talk to email us. The counselors, the nurses are here for them. Just shoot me an email. We're here for you. We're here for your families. There's a lot of resources on the district website when it comes to meals that are being given out. And just, for kids going through a rough time, just reach out to us. We're here for them. That's the one thing I would want students to know, that we are here for them.
And going along with that, I was able to find, if you are on the district webpage and you click on the box at the top that says click here to visit COVID-19 resource page, all of the nursing information is listed under student services resources. So there, it's actually basically everything you just talked about. There's the counseling piece to reach out to one of our counselors. There's information about resource, like family resources, the nursing services, exactly what you just talked about, all those different things. And then the meals information is all there as well too. So it's a good spot to reach out to there and having those different outlets. So Josh, as we're kind of getting ready to close up here, is there anything you wanted to add in or anything from the week that we can kind of carry forward? Next week, we're going to talk, actually, I think next week is just going to be with the counselors, but next week we're going to talk about what the fourth marking period is going to look like and all those kinds of things. So is there anything you want to kind of finish up with here for this week?
I don't think so.
So yeah, so for the students that are listening, if you, whenever you listen to this, check the school website. There'll be all the details for what's happening in the fourth marking period and your grades and all those kinds of things. We're going to leave that as for a more full discussion next week when we talk to Mrs. Demchek and Mr. McInerney on Monday. So Mr. Annoni, any last words here as we kind of tie it up here? Appreciate you taking some time. And I don't know if you would consider this a brain break or not, but at least you're not answering an email, or maybe you are. I don't know. I can't see what you're looking at on the other end, but at least it's giving you a chance to get away for a second here.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I appreciate definitely the invite and the opportunity to be a part of this. So, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. I think this is definitely important and a lot of fun. So thank you very much. And I would encourage all of the students to continue to just make sure you're staying up on top of your work, if you need anything, reach out. Reach out to your teachers, reach out to, the main office lines, reach out to your school counselors. We're here to help. All right. We definitely miss you guys.
And Ms. Hendershot, anything else that you want to, since you were our kind of lead person here today, anything you want to, I know you summed up pretty well the last time you spoke, but any other final imparting words of wisdom or anything for the, for students that are listening?
Please continue to wash your hands, stay at home, and stay safe with your families. And just please remember, we're always here for you.
And I think that's a great message to kind of end on here. Hopefully, no matter what is going on in the world around us, and the relaxation of stuff, I think no matter what happens, I think those things are super important, and those distancing and all the other stuff. So, thanks to Miss Hendershot, thanks to Mr. Annoni, Josh, thanks for joining us. David, who was on at the very beginning of the episode, had to go. He actually broke his collarbone before school let out, so he was going to get an update on that. So he was getting that all checked out. So thanks again for listening, everybody. And next week we will be talking and getting the information about what the rest of the school year is going to look like, and how to navigate that. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank